Today we have Shri D.S. Chaskar sir, Chief Engineer, Head of National Water Academy. He is going to deliver a session on accounting system in government, classification of expenditure and budget. So before sir starts, let me first introduce him briefly. Uh, Sir is a mechanical engineer. He has done his B in mechanical engineering from College of Engineering, Pune. After that, he pursued MTech in design engineering from IIT Mumbai. Sir joined Central Water Commission through engineering services examination and joined as assistant director in cost appraisal directorate in 1991. After that, he served as assistant director in Heidel Civil Design for nearly 7 months, and after that, he was posted as assistant director in Gates Design and NW Directorate from 1992 to 97. After that, he got transferred to National Water Academy, the then Central Training Institute, in 1997 as deputy director, and he worked there for 8 years. After that, he again transferred to New Delhi and worked as deputy director in Technical Coordination Directorate for 3 years. After that, he got transferred to NWA and worked there as a deputy director for 2 more years before becoming director. And he served as a director in National Water Academy from 2010 to 2018. That is nearly 8 years. After that, he transferred to Gandhinagar and served as director monitoring, and after that SEHOC in Gandhinagar for next 2 years. After that, he again transferred to NWA Pune, Monitoring Appraisal Directorate Pune, and he worked there for 2 years. And on promotion to chief engineer, he got transferred to MTBO Gandhinagar and worked there for 1 year. And after that, he again transferred to National Water Academy, and since May 2023, he's been working as chief engineer and head of National Water Academy. So with this, I invite Chief Saab to please start his session.
Good morning, everybody. This is the second day of your training program, and as I said yesterday, the first week is devoted to administrative matters, establishment matters, and financial matters. And today's lecture, we are going to focus on, accounting system in government, the budget, how we get the money in terms of budget estimate, revised estimate, so on and so forth. What is the difference between establishment expenditure and plan schemes? All those things we are going to discuss today. Just give me a minute. I will start my presentation. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Please
Your
confirm.
screen is visible.
Okay. So we are going to discuss about how we get the money under various heads, what are the various expenditure classification, and what is the overall accounting system in the government. And we are also going to touch upon a very important aspect that nowadays you all must have heard about EFC and SFC being prepared for the next financial cycle, particularly EFC of DWRIS and other schemes that we are implementing. We had our budget just 2 days back. On 1st of February, Honorable Finance Minister presented the budget in the Parliament. And normally, we as a citizen, we as a individual, look towards the budget for various tax, related issues, which things are going to get more taxed, where the tax is going to be reduced, how it is going to impact the prices of various things, so on and so forth. But as a government officer, government part of the government system, this budget is very, very important for all of us from a respect perspective, because this is the session of the parliament in which the requirement of finances for the whole government system, including various ministries, their subordinate organizations, for schemes, for non-schemes, for establishment expenditure, for railways, for defense, for law and order, for various things, the provision of budget is made, and it is approved by the parliament in the ongoing budget session. We, as a part of the government, work in an office, work in an organization. We are part of Department of Water Resources, Central Water Commission, and we implement many schemes. We undertake many governmental works, and as an unit of a government of India, we spend amount on various things: salary, office expenses, major work, minor work. Okay, we spent amount on repair and maintenance of our buildings. We spent amount on our travel. Now, this financial provision has to be there somewhere so that we are able to spend. Okay, so broadly, there are two types of expenditure. One is a revenue expenditure and one is a capital expenditure. Or budget provision is in the revenue heads and capital heads. Revenue heads means whenever expenditure is made onto the routine things, day-to-day maintenance things like salary, OE, major work, minor work, it is called revenue expenditure. And whenever expenditure is made for creating an asset, like construction of a building, furniture and fixtures, motor vehicle, machinery and equipment, where a asset is created or a asset is purchased, so those expenditure are called capital expenditure. Okay, so broadly in government of India, there are two types of budgetary provisions and two types of expenditure. One is a revenue and one is a capital. Other type of classification in government of India is uh, establishment expenditure and expenditure on schemes and projects. Now, what is the difference between these two things? Government of India, as a governance structure, needs to undertake certain need to undertake certain things or certain works which are a part of the governance system, like law and order, direction and administration. So they don't have any developmental objective, they have the objective of governing the system. Such type of expenditure is called establishment expenditure. That means irrespective of the other things, irrespective of the schemes, projects and developmental programs, the setup of the government which is going to be there continuously is establishment, and expenditure on that establishment is called establishment. Now again, the establishment expenditure will have a revenue component, will also have a capital component. Okay, the other expenditure is schemes. Schemes and projects are specific initiatives for certain developmental objectives. Say, for example, Atal Bhujal Yojana, Triple R, PMKSY, DWRIS, R&D. These are the schemes which has particular objective to achieve. Okay, and typically these schemes are valid only for 5 years. Earlier it is to be the 5-year plan. Now it is aligned with the finance commission cycle. Again, it is about 5-6 years or so. Incidentally, the schemes which were approved 5 years back are valid up to March 2026 only. Their validity will end, and beyond that, then again fresh schemes will have to be formulated, or if the existing scheme is to be continued, it has to be got approved again for 5 years. So schemes are typically valid for 5 years also. Now, what are the projects? Now, projects like national projects. We have Ken Betwa, Polaram, Farakka Barrage. These are the projects which were constructed for certain purposes. Okay, and again, the project machinery will have two type of expenditure: revenue heads, capital heads. Or a scheme like DWRS will have a two types of expenditure: revenue and capital. Okay, so fundamentally, this is the structure of governmental funding. Government organizations get funding under establishment expenditure or schemes and project. And again, further, there is a classification of revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Now, typically, we get our budget for the year as a whole. Okay, and we call it as a budget estimate for the year. Okay, during the year, depending upon actual requirement, depending upon changes in the planning, we may revise our budget requirement of that particular year, and we call it as a revised estimate. Okay, now when we submit the budget estimate, the budget requirement of next year, next financial year, is typically submitted in the September October month of the current financial year. Okay, so right now the month of February is going on, and the next financial year is yet to start. But for the next financial year, every office of Central Water Commission itself, and also the Ministry of Jal Shakti already prepared the budget estimates in the month of September, October, and all those requirements were compiled into one consolidated requirement of the Ministry of Jal Shakti, which includes two departments and various organizations, including National Water Academy, your own offices, in the field offices. The whole compilation of requirement for the Ministry of Jal Shakti under various schemes, projects, establishment expenditure for various revenue heads, capital heads is compiled into one kind of package, and that package is called demand for grants. Now, demand for grants is a very important, for each and every ministry, each and every organization, because the demand for grants includes the budget estimate for the next financial year. Okay, so our ministry's demand for grant has been given a number called number 62. There will be grant number 1, grant number 2, grant number 3, so on and so forth, belonging to different ministries and different organizations. For the Ministry of Jal Shakti, which includes a requirement of National Water Academy, requirement of DWRIS, CWC, CSMRS, CWPRS, NIH, Prakka Barrage, everybody's requirement, ministry's own requirement under various schemes, AIBP, Atal Bhujal, all those things are compiled, and one document is kind of prepared, and that document is called grant number 62. What do you mean by demand for grants? It is nothing but a request or the demand from Ministry of Jal Shakti to the Parliament that my requirement is this much for the next financial year. Please grant me this requirement. Okay, and that's why we call it as a demand for grants. Each ministry is putting its demand for grant from the parliament. Okay, now all these grants from different ministries, if they are combined together, they are added together, what it will be? It will be nothing but the annual expenditure requirement for the government of India as a whole for the next financial year. Okay, so it is called annual financial statement. So whatever is our requirement for the next financial year becomes part of the annual financial statement of government of India, which is presented by the finance minister in the budget. Okay, so day before yesterday, on Sunday, when finance minister presented the budget along with the all other budget speech and other documents, one of the document that was presented in the parliament was the annual financial statement, which is a statement as to how much revenue is going to be generated and how much is going to be the expenditure. How much is the expenditure? Nothing but the total of grant number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 62, 78, whatever it may be, total number of grants. That total will be the expenditure. Okay. Now this annual financial statement or demand for grants are approved by the parliament. After approval of the parliament, a appropriation bill to withdraw that much of amount from the consolidated fund of India is passed. Okay. Finance bill is also passed, which basically includes the changes in the tax structure. And then after both these bills are passed, government of India gets that money actually from the consolidated fund of India for spending during the next financial year. Okay, so this is the whole process of funding to the government. So where the funds come from? Say if you start from the top, it comes from consolidated fund of India based on the appropriation bill passed by the parliament. Appropriation bill is passed based on the demand for grants. Demands for grants are prepared by each ministry, consolidating the requirement of each and every requirement of the each and every scheme, project, establishment, expenditure, which include as well as capital expenditure and all other expenditure heads, including salary, office expenses, etc. Okay, and that is how we get our money. Okay, sometimes many of the schemes, smaller schemes are bundled together, and we call it as an umbrella scheme. Like DWRIS is umbrella scheme. Under DWRIS, we are further having some sub schemes like strengthening of monitoring units, HO hydrological observations and flood forecasting. There is a one I think scheme related to you know you can say CMIS was also part of the DWRIS, so on and so forth. Okay, nowadays the schemes and the projects which are approved for a finance commission cycle. Okay, and the current cycle was 21 to 26, and the next cycle will be 26 to 31. Okay, we will discuss it about this thing later. You have already spent about 6-7 years in the government of India, and you know that nothing can be done unless we have a funds available. Procurements, maintenance, hydrological observations, our day-to-day activity, office expenses. Timely availability of funding is very, very vital. But you will get fund only when you project your requirement, when you send your budget estimate for the next financial year in the month of September. Okay, and that's why planning in advance and making a provision in the BE request is a must. Most of our CWC contracts are running contracts, short-term contracts, procurements, etc. But suppose we have a contract which is running for more than 1 year. Suppose there is you are constructing a building, and the building is will be constructed within a period of 1.5 years. So it will require funding for the current year as well as for the next year. Okay, it is very important that you envisage all the works that are projected to be completed in the next financial year and make a provision for them in the budget. Because if you miss the bus, if you omit some atom, it will be really, really difficult to get the budget during that financial year. So you have to plan it very well. How you do the planning? Say, for example, when you are projecting your requirement under DWRIS for a particular year, you will have to refer to the EFC and SFC memo. Okay, because EFC and SFC memo gives the details of all the things that are planned to be conducted under that scheme in the next 5 years. There will be year-wise, bifurcation. There will be year-wise procurement targets. There will be the various, kind of contracts that are to be funded under their particular schemes. Various items to be procured. Say, for example, a bridge outfit, cableways, then vehicles. All those things will be there in the EFC memo. And your requirement has to be as per the EFC SFC memo if it is a requirement for the under a scheme. So ultimately, when you think of your activities for the next financial year, you will have to refer to the EFC memo as well. Okay, or if you are working on a project like Polavaram project, Ken Betwa project, Then you have to see that project report and how the funding is staggered across various years, and accordingly you will have to request the budget. All right. The budget session of the parliament, which started on Saturday, is very important session of the budget, session of the parliament. You know that parliament meets 3 times in a year: budget session, monsoon session, and winter session. Okay, and we all know that whenever the budget session is going on, there is a question answers, and we as a government of India organ need to give answers to the many questions that are being asked by the members of the parliament. But the importance of the budget session is very, very much, because it is this session in which the government of India presents to the parliament the annual financial statement for the next financial year, as to how much revenue is going to be expected by government and how much expenditure is going to be made. So how much is going to be the expenditure? Expenditure is equal to the total of all demand for grants given by every department, every ministry, and various organizations and organs of the government. Okay, and government projects as to how much revenue it is going to collect through direct taxes, indirect taxes, so on and so forth. Budget is a very comprehensive exercise. When honorable ministers presents budget in the parliament, it's not only the budget speech. There are many components which are involved. Okay, here I have highlighted 15 components. It includes budget at a glance, key to budget documents, annual financial statement, budget highlights, action taken on the previous budget announcement, receipt budget, that means how much revenue is going to be there, then finance bill, draft finance bill, that means what taxation changes are being brought before the parliament in the current year, then appropriation bill, which is nothing but a bill for withdrawal of the amount from Consolidated Fund of India equal to the total demand for grants, and then last will be outcome budget as well. So out of the list which I have presented here, the yellow text represents things which are constitutionally mandated. Okay, all those things that you see in this slide are put on the table of the parliament. संसद के पटल में इनको रखा जाता है the day the budget is presented by the honorable minister. So ये सारी चीजें अभी परसों हमारे पार्लियामेंट में पेश हुई है. अब बजट सेशन शुरू हो चुका है. Okay, now the budget session will be conducted in 2 parts. Okay, in 2 stages. The first stage is a general discussion which started on the day of the budget presentation. It will continue for 6-7 days more, or 7-8 days more, and then the parliament will be adjourned. So during this period, it's a general discussion on the budget without going into the specifics of it. Okay, and in the end, before the parliament is adjourned, finance minister will be reply at the end of that budget, at the end of the discussion. When after 10-12 days parliament will be adjourned, then the real thing starts. Okay, when the parliament is adjourned, the demand for grants given by respective ministries are examined. Okay, now as I said, demand for grants is nothing but a document which includes a ministry's organization wise, scheme wise, and budget head wise details. Okay, it is a consolidated request for the next year's budget by a ministry. As I said, our demand for a grant number is 62, and I would request all of you to go to the internet, type in the Google demand for grants number 62, download the document, and go through the document to understand as to what are the different schemes and budget heads, and what are the relative amounts that is normally requested by our mantralaya, by our ministry, from the parliament. Okay, it will give you a very good idea of the overall functioning of our ministry and requirement of funds under various schemes, organizations, and under various budget heads. So, how these demand for grants prepared by each ministry and presented to the parliament are examined. See, the parliament is a highest body in democracy. Parliament is supreme, most powerful. Okay, and it is for the parliament to approve the demand for grants. As you might be knowing, that government of India cannot spend a single paisa without the approval of the parliament. Each and every revenue of the government of India goes into the consolidated fund of India, and to draw any amount from the consolidated fund of India, parliament's approval is required. Okay, no ministry has the authority, nobody else has the authority to authorize expenditure from consolidated fund of India. The authorization, the permission, sanction is only given by parliament, and that sanction is given during the budget session. But before giving the sanction, the demand for grants submitted by each and every ministry is required to be examined. So parliament as a whole don't have that much of time to examine the budget of each and every ministry. So we have a parliamentary standing committees. Okay. Now this parliamentary standing committee is constituted by drawing member of parliament from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, from the ruling party for the opposition. So it's a mix of members from Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, different parties. So it's like a mini parliament. Every ministry has a one standing committee of parliament. Okay, like our ministry has a standing committee. Chairman of the standing committee is Shri Honorable Rajiv Pratap Rudi. Okay, he's the chairman. Now this committee has a responsibility of examining the demand for grant of the respective ministry. Okay, because parliament as a whole cannot examine each and every ministry's demand. So these smaller committees are prepared. Maybe about 15-20 parliament members are there. We know that Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha mila ke, we have around 800 members, and these 800 members are divided in different standing committees for different ministries. So this standing committee during the adjournment period examines the demand for grant of their respective ministry. They examine the outcome budget, they examine the annual reports. Okay, after examination by the standing committee prepares a report for each ministry, and the report is then placed in the parliament, maybe mostly recommending to the parliament that okay, we have examined the request of this ministry and the request can be approved. Okay, so after the adjournment is over and the house meets again, the discussion on the demand for grant starts. Okay, and during this discussion, on a sample basis, demand for grants of certain ministries is taken for the discussion in the parliament as a whole. Okay, and discussion happens during this period. The opposition members or any member of parliament can raise any issue. Most importantly, the members can raise cut motions. We are a parliamentary democracy. Whatever budgetary provisions have been made by government of India, various ministries, various plans, schemes, programs, policies, the opposition members may not agree, and they can show their disagreement for the budgetary provisions made for a particular scheme or project by way of uh, you know uh, proposing a motion called cut motion. And there are three types of cut motions. Suppose a government's policy is not is being opposed by some party or some member of the parliament, he can put a cut motion called disapproval of policy cut, and he will say that the budgetary provision for this particular atom should be reduced to rupees 1 only. That is a symbolic kind of thing. There might be a scheme where the member of parliament may be agreeing to the scheme as such, but may not be agreeing to the amount that is being spent on it. So they will say, instead of 10,000 crore, please reduce it to 2,000 crore. Okay, so that is the economic cut. Okay, or sometimes the issue may not be really the finance. There might be some issue wherein the member of parliament might want to vent his grievance, and that can be done by having a token cut. So the process will be that reduce the amount in this particular scheme by rupees 100. It is not going to really have any impact by reducing by rupees 100, but that is a way by which the opposition member will be venting out their kind of disagreements. So these are the cut motions which are uh, proposed by the members of the parliament during this discussion, and they are put to vote. Obviously no cut motion will get approved, because if it gets approved, that means the government of India will be in kind of the ruling party will be have a minority kind of vote in the parliament, and the government will collapse. So these are the ways and means by which a discussion happens in the parliament. Normally no cut motion goes through, doesn't get approved as such. Okay, so the discussion happens for few days, it cannot go on continuously. So the speaker of the house speaker of the Lok Sabha basically will put all the demand for grants for voting of the parliament, because it has to be approved by the parliament. The demand for grant, the total expenditure request, budgetary request by the various government departments, they will be put on vote, and this vote is called guillotine. Okay, because some will be discussed, some will not be discussed, but based on the report given by the standing committee, it will be put to vote and it will be passed by the parliament. This gives the authority, or this gives the approval for various spending on various schemes, programs, establishment expenditure to the limit indicated in the demand for grants. But this approval itself is not sufficient. Okay, a finance bill called a bill is required to be passed by the parliament so as to enable the government of India to withdraw that much of amount from the consolidated fund of India, and that's why a appropriation bill is passed. What is appropriation bill? Appropriation bill is nothing but a bill saying that consequent upon approval of the demand for grants, totaling amount say 10 lakh crore something, the government of India is authorized to withdraw that much of amount from the consolidated fund of India. Now this bill will be passed in the Lok Sabha. It will be sent to the Rajya Sabha, and then President of India will give accent to it, and then government of India will be able to withdraw the money for making expenditure. Okay, and that is how the year's requirement is made available to the government, to various ministries, by enacting the appropriation bill. Okay, but sometimes the parliament may not give the full annual budget. Instead of giving the full annual budget, only part of the budget is given to you, maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and it is called vote on account. Now there are certain instances in which parliament may not give the full year's budget, it will give vote on account. In earlier times, before 2017, the budget used to be presented on the last day of February, and then there was only the month of March available to process the whole budgetary proceedings. And normally it used to happen that on the 1st of April, when the new financial year starts, the process is still going on and the parliament approval is still awaited. So how the government of India will run from 1st April onwards? So during that period, a vote on account used to be passed by the parliament, which would authorize 2 months expenditure for the government of India, or till the next year's full budget is approved, whichever is kind of earlier. Okay, so that was the vote on account. Nowadays, because we have preponed the date of budget, now the day budget is presented on the first day of uh, February itself. We have 2 full months, February and March, to process the budget, to get the parliament's approval, to get the approval to the appropriation bill, and we can now have the full year's budget available on the first day of the April month. So nowadays, the vote on account is not required, but it is required only in case there is an election. Say, for example, in 2024, the elections were scheduled in the month of July or June. Now, the present government cannot or does not have a moral right to plan the expenditure of the next year for full 12 months, because the government doesn't may change in the month of June, July, when the elections are held. Okay, so during such period, it is expected that, or it is vote on account is passed by the parliament, giving the authority to the government to spend certain amount on a proportional basis up till, say, July or August. As you might be knowing that in 2024-25, we received only 5 months budgetary requirement for April, May, June, July, and August. And only after the new government was formed and new government presented the budget for full year, we got the full year's requirement sometime in the month of August. Okay, so vote on account will be still required in the election years to facilitate the government spending till the full year's budget is passed by the new government. Now, as you know that each and every revenue that a government of India receives through taxes, direct taxes, indirect taxes, interest, all those things, they all are deposited in the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, it's a public money, and withdrawal from this Consolidated Fund of India is only on the basis of appropriation approval made by the parliament. Okay, so all government spending comes from the Consolidated Fund of India. There is one more account called public account, where the money belonging to the public is deposited. It is not government's money, it is not tax. Say, for example, GPF of the government servants, okay, provident fund, okay, which is because government is a custodian of it, they are not the owner of it, the money belongs to the people, the government servants. So such money is kept in the public account. Okay, and there is a third account also, it is called contingency fund. You must be having impressed with you. Impressed is basically to cater to the exigencies, unforeseen expenditure, immediate expenditure, for which the regular process of our procurement cannot be followed. The same thing can happen with the government of India also. Okay, even though there is a stipulation that Consolidated Fund of India's money cannot be utilized without the approval of the parliament, there can be situation, there can be exigencies where government of India will need to spend it, like out of pocket expenditure. Okay, so a impressed or a contingent fund is kept at the disposal of government of India also. Okay, and that fund is called contingency fund. There is a provision in the constitution for such corpus fund. This fund was 500 crore till 2021. In 2021, the amount is now increased to 30,000 crore. So you can imagine that 30,000 crore is with the government of India to make spending on various contingent expenditure exigencies. Okay, but just like you take impressed or temporary advance, you make expenditure, and then the expenditure account is given to your controlling officer, who will approve each and every voucher submitted by you. Similarly, even though the government of India is having this 30,000 contingency fund and it can spend from it, the account is required to be presented to the parliament, and parliament needs to approve it post facto. Okay, so suppose out of 30,000, government spends say 25,000, so they will submit the account to the parliament. Parliament will pass it, and then the amount will be recouped to the government. That kind of thing. There are such certain restrictions as to how this amount can be used. 40% of this corpus is placed at the disposal of the expenditure secretary, and beyond that, approval of the expenditure secretary in addition to the economic affairs secretary's approval is required. As I said, there are two bills which are passed in every budget session. One is appropriation bill and the other is a finance bill. Now, once the demand for grants are approved, that means the final expenditure that is going to be made by the various governmental organs, the extra is known. Okay, the government has another bill called finance bill, which proposes various taxes, changes in the taxation, new taxation, etc., so as to garner the revenue equal to the expenditure that is proposed to be made. Okay, so this finance bill is also presented in the parliament. It is passed by the Lok Sabha. It goes to the Rajya Sabha. As you know that a money bill doesn't require approval of the Rajya Sabha. It only requires approval of the Lok Sabha. So appropriation bill, finance bill, they are money bills. They go to the Rajya Sabha only for discussion, and after discussion, the bill is then presented to the president for its accent, and then it becomes a law. Okay, there is a provision that the finance bill has to be passed by the parliament and assented to by the president before the expiry of 75th day after the day on which it was introduced. So how much time is available? 75 days time is available for the enactment of financial bill. Okay, so if you start on the 1st of February, 75 days means 2.5 months. Okay, as I said, once you get the budget approval from the parliament, that has to be used throughout the year for making the expenditure. Budget session is conducted only once, but there can be some ways by which, if some department requires some additional amount, or they start some additional service or project or scheme in between, which was not envisaged earlier, and now they require the money, is it possible to get it? Yes, it is possible. And it is called supplementary demand for grants. That means demand for grants in addition to your original demand for grants. But then there are restrictions. You cannot go to the parliament with supplementary demand for grants for the schemes, programs which are already envisaged in the original budget, and you want to increase the amount. No, that is not allowed. You can go for the supplementary demand for grants only in case of some new things which were not in the budget. Okay, As I said, supplementary demand for grants can be presented in the each budget session. So it can be presented in the monsoon budget session. It can be presented in the winter budget session also. And again, the procedure is same, that supplementary demand for grant will be compiled for each ministry. Then again, the whole thing will be compiled. It will be put up to the parliament. It will be examined by the respective standing committee. And only when it is examined, recommended by the standing committee, and then discussed in the parliament, it will be approved. But as I said, it is only for the new service. That's why it is very important that whenever we ask money for the next year's budget, we ask the money for all envisaged activities for the schemes that we are having. Because once we ask it, we won't be able to, enhance it at a later stage. Okay. It may also happen that you was allocated certain budget by the parliament, a ministry was allocated certain budget, but during the year there were exigencies and higher expenditure was made. Okay. When higher expenditure is made, which is beyond the authorization by the parliament, then it is called excess demand. And excess demand for grant is also has to be presented to the parliament. अगर आपने ज्यादा स्पेंड किया है तो उसका भी आपको पार्लियामेंट से काइंड ऑफ पोस्ट डिफैक्टो अप्रूवल लेना होगा. एंड दैट पोस्ट डिफैक्टो अप्रूवल के लिए जो प्रपोजल जाएगा, इट इज कॉल्ड एक्सेस डिमांड फॉर ग्रांट. बट जब आप एक्सेस स्पेंड करते हो, इफ ए मिनिस्ट्री डज द एक्सेस एक्सपेंडिचर, दैट इज एग्जामिन्ड बाय द पब्लिक अकाउंट्स कमिटी ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट. पार्लियामेंट में एक पब्लिक अकाउंट्स कमिटी होती है, which is headed by the leader of opposition, and that committee then examines thoroughly as to what was the need for such expenditure. Was it genuine? Was it really required? They will question the respective officers of the ministry, and if they are satisfied with the reason, then it will be presented and passed by the house. So it is kind of a post de facto approval. But these things are very rare, and there will be really a rarest of the rare cases where some ministry spends more than what amount is allocated to it. So how the budget session process progresses? As I said, budget is normally presented on the first working day of the February. This year it was 2nd of February. Here I have given the dates of 2023 just to show you the timelines. So budget is presented on the first day. After some time, maybe 10-12 days of discussions, it is adjourned for almost a month. Here it was adjourned from 30th February to 12th of March. Okay. During this period, the standing parliamentary committee examined the respective demand for grants. The parliament session started on 13th of March. Discussion went on for 6-7 days. On 23rd of March, the whole demand for grants were passed by the Lok Sabha. Okay. On the same day, appropriation bill was also passed. On the next day, finance bill was passed. Appropriation and finance bill were sent to the Rajya Sabha. They were discussed there. It came back on 27th of March. President gave the accent to both the bills on 31st of March. And that is how the budget process got over on 31st of March. And on 1st of April, legally, the whole amount was available to the government of India, and now it can withdraw that amount from the consolidated fund of India as per the needs. Now you get a budget estimate for the full year, but then there is a provision of revised estimate also. Okay. But as I said, revised estimate is a kind of internal adjustments within the framework of delegated powers to the respective ministry and finance ministry. because Parliament also knows that once the approval is given, some changes might be required during the year, depending upon actual situation, some exigencies. So there are certain things which are allowed. Some changes are allowed within the budget, within the overall approval given by the Parliament. Okay. Now, this is the time when we can modify our provisions given for a particular scheme or even for the establishment expenditure, and we can do some internal adjustments without exceeding the total mandate given by the Parliament. Okay. And that is what is called RE. RE for the current year and B for the next year. Both are sent simultaneously sometime in the month of September. Okay. But we all know that if we make any changes in the RE, if we surrender some amount and request some additional amount, the RE allotments are normally received in the month of February. So you have a very small time available to spend that amount. If you have proposed certain procurements, you will really get very small time frame to process everything. So it's very, very important that when you project your revised estimates, you have to project this very, very realistically. Okay, you can't ask the money and then don't spend. It will be viewed very seriously. So as I said, once the Parliament approves the budget, there is some provision for making changes, and these are called reappropriation rules. Reappropriation means uh, transferring the money from one primary unit of appropriation to another unit, or transferring the money from one scheme to the other scheme. Okay, within the financial year. Okay, this appropriation is normally done when there is a saving in one budget head and more amount is required in some other budget head. So there are, as per the rules, there are three scenarios. One scenario is that it is not allowed at all. Okay, there are certain conditions, certain situations in which it is not allowed. There is one condition where it is allowed, but you have to take the approval of the Ministry of Finance. And third is the respective ministry can do the reappropriation on its own. Okay, now let us try to see which are those scenarios where ministry can do it itself, where it will require the approval of the finance ministry, or where reappropriation itself will not be permissible. So our ministry will have the power for augmenting the provisions of the salary, wages, pension, medical through reappropriation of fund access across the schemes, provided the approved ceiling of the grant is not exceeded. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. पार्लियामेंट ने में अगर आपको जो टोटल अमाउंट दिया है उसको क्रॉस किए बिना आप इंटरनल एडजस्टमेंट जो सैलरी, मेडिकल एक्सपेंडिचर वगैरह है उसमें आप कर सकते हो. ओके, ये मंत्रालय की पावर है. Now there are certain things for which our ministry will have to take the approval of finance ministry. वो किस चीज के लिए? Suppose we want to transfer the fund from a plan scheme to the non-plan scheme. Okay, or transferring the budget from major work, which is a capital expenditure, to some other heads, or for transferring the budget to the works in excess of 15% of the authorized limit. Okay, that means works में आप 15% से ज्यादा आप एक्स्ट्रा नहीं ले सकते, उसके लिए आपको फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री के पास जाना पड़ेगा. So and so forth. There are various other conditions. I am not going to go through it. You can later on see it. But there are certain conditions where finance ministry can give the approval. Okay, या ये भी कुछ conditions है जिसमें finance ministry की approval की आवश्यकता है. But then there are certain reappropriations which are not allowed by the at all. Okay, like reappropriation from votable expenditure to the charge expenditure, reappropriation from revenue section to the capital section, reappropriation to some new service which was not envisaged in the original budget, रीअप्रोप्रिएशन टू द वर्क जिनका AAES नहीं मिला है, ओके. Expenditure for the works, new works which was not provided in the budget and which may cost more than 50 lakhs, ओके. और एक है कि सैलरी हेड से किसी दूसरे हेड में करने के लिए आपको अलाउड नहीं है, ओके. सो यू कांट रिड्यूस द सैलरी हेड एंड ट्रांसफर द अमाउंट टू सम अदर हेड. सो देयर आर सर्टेन रेस्ट्रिक्शंस विद इन दिस रेस्ट्रिक्शन. बट जैसे आप लोग जानते हैं कि जब हमें बी मिलता है किसी स्कीम में, विद इन CWC सम एडजस्टमेंट्स आर पॉसिबल. सपोज कि DWRS में ओई में आपको एक्स्ट्रा पैसा चाहिए, तो किसी और डिवीजन में अगर आपकी सेविंग है तो आप ओई का वहां का पैसा आप इधर ले सकते हो. CWC को जो ओवरऑल अलॉटमेंट है उसके तहत हम CWC के इंटरनली चेंज करते हैं. दैट इज नॉट रीअप्रोप्रिएशन, ओके. बट जब DWRS में हमें पैसा चाहिए और किसी और स्कीम से वो पैसा उठा के मंत्रालय हमें देगा, दैट विल बिकम अ रीअप्रोप्रिएशन. आप सब जानते हैं कि पिछले साल हमें DWRS में पैसे की आवश्यकता थी और हमारा मंत्रालय के बियॉन्ड पावर था वो देना. तो फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री के साथ अप्रूवल से बात करके प्रपोजल भेज के वी गॉट सम, आई थिंक 70 या 80 करोड़ या ऐसा कुछ. आई एम नॉट एग्जैक्टली अवेयर ऑफ द एग्जैक्ट अमाउंट, बट वो अमाउंट हमें मिला था इन अर्ली स्टेज बाय रीअप्रोप्रिएशन, wherein some additional budget was provided to this one out of some savings in some other scheme. एक अथॉराइजेशन ऑफ फंड करके कंसेप्ट है. देर आर मेनी इंस्टेंसेस वेयर एक मंत्रालय या दूसरे मंत्रालय का एक ऑफिस किसी और मंत्रालय के ऑफिस के लिए काम करता है. वन एग्जाम्पल इज CPWD. सपोज कि हमें कोई बिल्डिंग बनानी है तो हम CPWD से बिल्डिंग बनवा के लेते हैं. या जैसे NWA को अगर कोर्स करना है तो हम जैसे IIRS देहरादून जो है, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ रिमोट सेंसिंग, उससे हम कोर्स करवाते हैं. तो ऐसे केस में बिकॉज CPWD is also a government of India, IIRS also a government of India, so instead of giving the money to them in the form of a demand draft, instead of giving the amount at their disposal, we put our budget head at their disposal. हम उनको पैसे नहीं देते, हम अपना बजट हेड उनको देते हैं और उनको अथराइज करते हैं कि इस बजट हेड से आप इतना इतना पैसा ले लो, क्योंकि बजट तो हमारे पास आया है ना. बजट हमारा है, बजट हेड भी हमारी है, स्कीम भी हमारा है. द ओनली थिंग इज की CPWD इज गोइंग टू यूज दैट मनी फॉर कंस्ट्रक्शन एज पर द अप्रूवल ऑफ द कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी. तो हम उनको जो बजट हेड उनके डिस्पोजल पर रखते हैं उसको हम कहते हैं अथोराइजेशन. और ये अथोराइजेशन आपको हर साल करना होगा, क्योंकि सपोज आपने 1 करोड़ रुपया अभी इस साल आपके बजट में है और आपने उस बजट हेड में से 80 लाख उनके पास रखा और CPWD ने सपोज अगर 70 लाख ही एक्सपेंडिचर किया तो 10 लाख उनके पास अवेलेबल नहीं होगा. ऑन 31st of March द फंड विल लैप्स. जैसे हम अपना अपना बजट जैसे लैप्स होता है, फॉर द नेक्स्ट ईयर अगेन वी हैव टू रिक्वेस्ट बजटरी प्रोविजन फॉर दैट बजट हेड अगले साल के लिए भी, और उसमें से फिर उनको अथोराइज करना होगा. सो अथोराइजेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड टू बी डन इन दैट फाइनेंशियल ईयर, और जरूरत हो तो अगेन एंड अगेन आपको करना होगा. सो बेसिकली व्हेन यू पुट or when you give budget head authorization to somebody, it's not actual expenditure. Actual expenditure तो वो डिपार्टमेंट जब एक्चुअली बुक करेगा तभी एक्चुअल एक्सपेंडिचर होगा. सो इट अवॉइड्स पार्किंग ऑफ द फंड्स बेसिकली. पहले पुराने जमाने में होता था कि CPWD को हम चेक से पैसा दे देते थे, डिमांड ड्राफ्ट से पैसा दे देते थे, तो हम अपने लेवल पे शो करते थे कि हमारा एक्सपेंडिचर हो गया. बट नाउ डेज दैट कैन नॉट बी डन, है ना. आपका एक्सपेंडिचर आप ऐसे नहीं शो कर सकते. आपको सिर्फ उनको बजट हेड देना होगा और जैसे जैसे उनका एक्सपेंडिचर होता जाएगा वही एक्सपेंडिचर आप प्रोग्रेस में दिखा सकते हो. इन गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया देयर आर वेरियस चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस. पार्लियामेंट के अप्रूवल के बेसिस पे हम लोग स्पेंडिंग तो करते हैं, बट देन वेदर द स्पेंडिंग वाज डन एज पर द अप्रूवल ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट बाय फॉलोइंग द GFR, FRSR, ये सारे देखने के लिए हमारे पास ऑडिट की सिस्टम है. देयर आर 2 ऑडिट्स. One is an internal audit, which is done by the our own ministry, and then external audit, which is done by the organs or the offices of Controller and Auditor General, that is by Principal Director of Audit of the respective region. Okay, and after the audit, there are audit paras, comments, which are required to be, explained by the respective office as to why they did so. Okay, based on the explanation, the audit paras are dropped. But it may happen that at a say bigger level, maybe at a scheme level or at a program level, there are some issues, and controller of general is of the opinion that the money was not spent properly by the government. Money was not utilized properly. There was a uh, kind of mismanagement of funds, not following the rules and regulation. Then the controller and auditor general prepares a report on such incidences, and this report is placed in the parliament. This report of CAG is again examined by the Public Accounts Committee, which is headed by the leader of opposition. Okay, and then respective Mantralaya officers are called. Explanation is sought as to why this happened, and it's a quite a grueling kind of exercise. And Parliament, if they feel, the Public Accounts Committee feel that there is a lapses on the part of the government officers, lapses on the part of the department, they may recommend necessary action. And if they feel it is a genuine kind of case beyond the control of the respective officers and ministry, they may regularize it, and that is how the whole cycle of budget gets completed. Okay, so is there any example of our ministry's expenditure on any scheme being reported by the Controller and Auditor General of India? Yes. Our scheme called AIBP was specifically, kind of criticized by Controller and Auditor General. I won't say criticized. They prepared a special report. It's called Report Number 22 of 2018. And in this report, they highlighted the, kind of lacunas in implementation, lapses in implementation, and how the money could have been better utilized, how the terms and conditions of release of this amount to the state could have been better, monitored. All those things were highlighted in this report, and this report was presented to the parliament. And then again, this report was examined by the Public Accounts Committee. Our ministry gave replies to the various paras and this one. And I'm not yet really sure whether this has been regularized or not. But this is one example which pertaining to our ministry. Now, what we talked up till now was the financial budget expenditure, budget heads. But there is one concept called output and outcome budget. What is the outcome of the money spent by the government of India on various schemes? Say, for example, if government spends money on AIBP, the objective of AIBP is to create the irrigation potential. So, how much irrigation potential has been created? So, what are the developmental benefits out of various schemes and programs? That is also required to be budgeted and presented to the parliament. And this is called outcome budget. As I showed you in the initially, various documents to be tabled in the parliament. One of the document is the outcome budget. Okay, so our ministry also prepares the outcome budget, highlighting the actual output of each and every schemes, not the expenditure output, but the physical progress. All of you know that typically a budget of a office uh, may have you may get a budget from establishment section as well as some schemes. Say, for example, monitoring and appraisal directorates typically get budget under DWRIS and D&A. So D&A is a establishment expenditure. It's a non-scheme, and DWRIS is a scheme. D&A budget doesn't require a renewal of proposal every 5 years. It is perpetual, so you will continue to get the amount. But DWRIS is a scheme, and every 5 years you will require to formulate a new scheme or for continuation of this scheme a proposal, and that only on the approval of that proposal you will get funds under that scheme. And that's why right now CWC has recently prepared the EFCs on various schemes that we implement. DWRIS is one of the scheme. Okay, and the total outlay is, I think, 2400 crore. Okay, that we have projected for the next 5 years. The discussion is now going on at various levels. Okay, we will soon see who approves the schemes. जैसे हमारी ये 2400 करोड़ की स्कीम बनी, तो इसको कौन अप्रूवल देगा? ओके, अगर यही स्कीम अगर सपोज 200 करोड़ की थी तो कौन अप्रूवल देगा? डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द आउटले ऑफ द स्कीम. 5 साल के लिए आपका कितना आउटले है, उसके बेसिस पे उसको कौन अप्रूवल देगा ये तय है. okay? इसको एग्जामिन कौन करेगा, इसका अप्राइजल कौन करेगा, और इसको अप्रूवल कौन देगा, वी विल सी टू इट. बट बिफोर दैट, जैसे मैंने कहा कि हमारा जो बजट जो हमें मिलता है अलग अलग बजट हेड में मिलता है. ओके, और उसी हेड में हमें एक्सपेंडिचर करना होता है. तो हमारे जो ऑब्जेक्ट हेड्स है इसका अलग अलग तरीके से क्लासिफिकेशन है. क्लास 1 budget head represents compensation to the employees. Class 2 represents social security of the employees. Class 3 is for goods and services. Okay, class 4 is aid and assistance. Class 5 is the miscellaneous revenue expenditure. Then there is a capital के अंदर भी दो कैटेगरीज है, क्लास 6 and 7. ये क्लास 6 is not non-financial assets, building and structure, furniture, information, ICT equipment, motor vehicles, so on and so forth. And then ऑब्जेक्ट क्लास 7 में है फाइनेंशियल असेट्स, इन्वेस्टमेंट, लोन्स एंड अदर. सो ये जो सारे बजट हेड है, दीज आर द फंडामेंटल यूनिट्स जिसके तहत आपको पैसा मिलता है और उसी के तहत आपको एक्सपेंडिचर करना होता है. गवर्नमेंट की जो अकाउंटिंग सिस्टम है ये 15 डिजिट में रिप्रेजेंट होती है. ये जो पहले 4 डिजिट होते हैं ये इसको मेजर हेड कहा जाता है, विच रिप्रेजेंट्स द मेजर फंक्शंस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. देन उसके बाद के जो दो डिजिट है उसको सब फंक्शन बोलते हैं, सब मेजर हेड. माइनर हेड होता है 3 डिजिट का, जो एक ब्रॉड मदर प्रोग्राम को रिप्रेजेंट करता है. उसके बाद 2 डिजिट का एक सब हेड होता है जो बेसिकली उस स्कीम का नंबर होता है या प्रोजेक्ट का नंबर होता है या कोई एक्टिविटी है स्पेसिफिक उसका नंबर होता है. उसके आगे के 2 होते हैं सब स्कीम, और उसके लास्ट के जो 2 डिजिट्स होते हैं वो प्राइमरी यूनिट ऑफ एप्रोप्रिएशन बोलते हैं. जो अभी अभी हमने देखे सैलरी, ओई, डीटी वगैरह वगैरह, वो सबसे आखिरी के 2 होते हैं. तो अगर आप एक एग्जांपल देखेंगे उसका, तो 15 डिजिट ऐसे दिखाई देते हैं आपको. 2701 80 003 05 0013. 2701 is a number, 4 डिजिट नंबर अलॉटेड टू मेजर एंड मीडियम इरिगेशन, और इसलिए हमारे मंत्रालय का ज्यादातर पैसा इसी बजट हेड से आता है. 2701 और 2701 रिप्रेजेंट्स रेवेन्यू हेड्स एंड 4701 रिप्रेजेंट्स कैपिटल हेड. ओके, कैपिटल हेड फॉर मेजर एंड माइनर इरिगेशन. तो जैसे आप इसमें देख सकते हैं इस तरीके से उसका मीनिंग होता है 15 डिजिट का. ये मैं स्किप करता हूं, आप ये बाद में देख सकते हैं. ये अभी हमने देखा. सो दिस इज अनदर एग्जांपल DWRIS का. 27 रेवेन्यू अगर है, रेवेन्यू हेड है, जैसे ओई है तो हम लिखेंगे 2701 80 800 11 0013. ओके, और यही अगर कैपिटल है DWRIS में तो वो हो जाता है 4701. 4 से स्टार्ट होगा, 4701 80 800 06 0072. ओके, 72 वो होगा बिल्डिंग्स एंड स्ट्रक्चर्स. ओके, तो जैसे भी हमने बात की कि हमारा जो डिमांड फॉर ग्रांट्स हम जो भेजते हैं उसमें हमारा एस्टैब्लिशमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर और सभी स्कीम्स के लिए हमें कितना पैसा चाहिए वो हम इसको देते हैं. इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद हमारी जो सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट की प्लानिंग हुई ये 5 ईयर प्लान्स में होती रही. तो 5-5 साल का हम प्लान बना देते. और हर सेक्टर में कितना हमें स्पेंड करना है, क्या इन्वेस्टमेंट करनी है, उसका लेखा जोखा होता था। 2017 के बाद हमने वो 5 ईयर प्लान को छोड़ दिया है, एंड नाउ वी हैव स्टार्टेड अलाइनिंग अवर डेवलपमेंटल एक्टिविटीज विद द फाइनेंस कमीशन साइकिल। वो भी 5 साल का ही होता है। तो जैसे मैंने कहा कि दो कैटेगरी होती है हमारी ब्रॉड एक्सपेंडिचर की, एक तो एस्टेब्लिशमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर और दूसरा होता है डेवलपमेंटल एक्टिविटीज थ्रू स्कीम्स एंड प्रोजेक्ट्स। तो सपोज कि कोई नया मतलब ऑटोनॉमस बॉडी कह लो, या कंपनी, या यूनिवर्सिटी, या नया कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ओपन करना है विच विल हैव अ परपेचुअल एक्सिस्टेंस। तो ऐसे केस में somebody needs to give a approval to that. Okay, so creation of new company, new office, autonomous body is approved by the cabinet. Okay, along with creation of post at the level of joint secretary. Normally there is a one more before it is put up to the cabinet, it has to be apprised, examined by somebody. So there is a committee on establishment expenditure with secretary department of expenditure as a chairman. It is the appraisal forum. तो कोई भी नया ऑफिस, नया ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, नया ऑटोनॉमस बॉडी, कंपनी अगर गवर्नमेंट का शुरू करना है तो आपको प्रपोजल बनाना होगा. द प्रपोजल विल बी एग्जामिन्ड बाय द CEE, कमिटी ऑन एस्टेब्लिशमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर, and based on the recommendation it will be approved by the cabinet. Okay, तो ये कंपोजिशन होता है एस्टैब्लिशमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर के कमेटी का. ओके, इसमें रिस्पेक्टिव मिनिस्ट्री, नीति आयोग एंड FA जो है रिस्पेक्टिव मिनिस्ट्री का, वो मेंबर सेक्रेटरी होगा. हमारे मंत्रालय में बहुत सारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं जो परपेचुअल है. परपेचुअल इन द सेंस दे आर पार्ट ऑफ द गवर्नेंस स्ट्रक्चर, और सभी को आवश्यकता होगी फंडिंग की. तो जैसे आप देखेंगे मिनिस्ट्री खुद का, जो मिनिस्ट्री का सेटअप है दिल्ली में, फिर जो अटैच्ड एंड सबऑर्डिनेट ऑफिसेस है, CWC, CGWB, CWPRS, NIH, including NWA, Rajiv Gandhi Institute, all these offices require establishment expenditure. Okay? उसके अलावा जैसे मैंने कहा कि हर मंत्रालय को डेवलपमेंटल एक्टिविटीज करनी होती है, नई नई स्कीम्स, नए नए प्रोजेक्ट, नए नए प्रोग्राम लाने होते हैं. वो फिर से दो टाइप के होते हैं, सेंट्रल सेक्टर स्कीम्स एंड सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड स्कीम्स. दोनों में क्या फर्क है? What is the difference between a central sector schemes and centrally sponsored scheme? सेंट्रल सेक्टर स्कीम्स उसको बोलते हैं कि ऐसी नई योजना जो भारत सरकार के ज्यूरिसडिक्शन में ही है, उसी की जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है उसी में है, उसका जो रोल होता है, उसकी जो एक्टिविटीज होती है उसी में है. जैसे DWRS इज अ सेंट्रल सेक्टर स्कीम. भाई ये हमारा दायित्व है सभी रिवर्स का डाटा कलेक्ट करना, तो वो स्कीम हमारी है. हम इस स्कीम में किसी स्टेट को पैसा नहीं देते, किसी और को पैसा नहीं देते. ओके, बट दूसरा एक टाइप होता है स्कीम का, सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड. हम ऐसी योजनाओं को स्पॉन्सर करते हैं जो अदरवाइज स्टेट का सब्जेक्ट है और स्टेट की दायित्व है और स्टेट उसमें इंप्लीमेंट करेगा, बट वी विल सपोर्ट इट, वी विल फंड इट, सेंट्रल से फंडिंग होगी. ओके, तो AIBP, RRR, अटल भूजल योजना, ये ऐसे स्कीम्स है जहां पे हम स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को फंडिंग करते हैं, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को पैसा देते हैं. ओके, सो दे आर सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड स्कीम्स. तो अभी आप देखेंगे और भी, जैसे मैंने यहाँ पे दिया है, ड्रीप, नमामि गंगे, रिवर बेसिन मैनेजमेंट, DWRIS, NHP, अटल भूजल योजना, ये सारे सेंट्रल सेक्टर के स्कीम्स है. और वही ऐसे सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड जैसे AIBP, हर खेत को पानी, कमांड एरिया डेवलपमेंट, नेशनल रिवर कंजर्वेशन प्लान, इंटरलिंकिंग ऑफ रिवर्स, जिसमें हम केन बेतवा के लिए पैसे देते हैं. सो दीज आर द सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड स्कीम्स. प्रोजेक्ट्स का भी हम फंडिंग करते हैं, जैसे केन बेतवा, पोलावरम. ओके, केन बेतवा इज वन एग्जाम्पल. तो ये नई स्कीम बनाना या कोई नया प्रोजेक्ट के लिए जब हमें प्रोविजन करनी होती है, रिक्वेस्ट करनी होती है हमारे बजट के लिए, तो उसका अप्रूवल होना जरूरी है। ओके, तो इसका कैसे अप्रूवल होता है? कोई भी स्कीम, चाहे वो नई स्कीम हो या पुरानी स्कीम को हमें कंटिन्यू करना है, तो उसके लिए आपको ईएफसी मेमो या एसएफसी मेमो बनाना पड़ता है। ईएफसी मेमो और एसएफसी मेमो इज नथिंग बट ए डॉक्यूमेंट फॉर एग्जामिनेशन बाय द स्टैंडिंग फाइनेंस कमिटी एसएफसी और एक्सपेंडिचर फाइनेंस कमिटी ईएफसी। ओके, उस कमिटी के नाम से उसको हम खुद बुलाते हैं। और अगर वो प्रोजेक्ट है तो डीआईबी, डेलीगेटेड इन्वेस्टमेंट बोर्ड या पब्लिक इन्वेस्टमेंट बोर्ड। तो अगर स्कीम है तो एसएफसी ईएफसी में जाएगा, और अगर प्रोजेक्ट है तो डीआईबी और पीआईबी में जाएगा। ओके, अगर प्रोजेक्ट है तो डीपीआर बनेगा, और अगर स्कीम है तो उसका ईएफसी एसएफसी प्रपोजल बनेगा। अगेन, स्कीम में रेवेन्यू भी आ सकता है, एक्सपेंडिचर तो होता ही होता है, तो उसमें भी अगेन रेवेन्यू एंड कैपिटल इस टाइप का बाइफर्केशन होगा। कोई भी हम स्कीम, नई स्कीम हो या कंटिन्यू करने के लिए 5 साल के लिए जब हम वो प्रपोजल बनाते हैं, तो उसमें डिटेल जस्टिफिकेशन, फिजिकल टारगेट, हम क्या करने वाले हैं, इससे आउटकम क्या निकलेगा, हर साल का आउटले क्या होगा, ईयर वाइज फेजिंग क्या होगी, कैपिटल और रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर में क्या बाइफर्केशन होगा, बजट हेड कौन कौन से होंगे, और हर बजट हेड में आपको कितना पैसा चाहिए होगा, ये पूरा लेखा जोखा उसमें उस ईएफसी एसएफसी मेमो में, या जो डीआईबी पीआईबी के लिए जो मेमो बनेगा डीपीआर के बेस पे, वो होता है। तो लेट अस ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कौन सी स्कीम के लिए डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द आउटले कौन अप्रूवल दे सकता है। okay? अगर आपकी स्कीम 100 करोड़ तक है, पूरे 5 साल में 100 करोड़ उसका अगर एक्सपेंडिचर है, तो इसके लिए कोई कमिटी नहीं है। जेएसएफए फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर इसका एग्जामिन करेंगे और हमारे सेक्रेटरी इसको अप्रूवल देंगे। अगर 100 से 500 करोड़ तक का स्कीम है, तो वो एसएफसी के पास जाएगा, स्टैंडिंग फाइनेंस कमेटी के पास। वो कमेटी उसको एग्जामिन करेगी, रिकमेंड करेगी, और उस एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डिपार्टमेंट के मिनिस्टर साहब उसको अप्रूव करेंगे 500 करोड़ तक। तो मतलब आप ये देख सकते हैं कि हमारे मंत्री महोदय की पावर 500 करोड़ की है, हमारे सेक्रेटरी साहब की पावर 100 करोड़ की है। अगर वही प्रपोजल आपका 500 करोड़ से ज्यादा होगा और 1000 करोड़ तक होगा, तो आपको ईएफसी मेमो बनाना पड़ेगा, जो जाएगा एक्सपेंडिचर फाइनेंस कमेटी के पास, जिसको चेयर करते हैं एक्सपेंडिचर सेक्रेटरी। और 500 से 1000 तक होगा तो हमारे मिनिस्टर साहब और फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर साहब दोनों मिलकर उसको अप्रूवल देंगे, ये कैबिनेट के पास नहीं जाएगा। 1000 करोड़ तक का जो प्रपोजल है, वो दोनों मिनिस्टर्स उसको अप्रूवल दे सकते हैं, ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर्स। बट अगर 1000 करोड़ से ज्यादा का है तो ये कैबिनेट के पास जाएगा, और कैबिनेट ही उसको अप्रूवल देगी, कैबिनेट की कमेटी जो भी होगी। तो अभी जैसे हमारा डीडब्ल्यूआरएस का प्रपोजल 2400 करोड़ का बना है, तो वो किसके पास जाएगा अप्रूवल के लिए? कैबिनेट के पास। पिछले समय जो ईएफसी था हमारा 750 करोड़ का था, 1000 से कम था, तो उसका अप्रूवल किसने किया था? हमारे मंत्री महोदय और फाइनेंस मंत्री महोदय, उन्होंने किया था। ओके, तो अब आपको समझ में आया होगा कि ईएफसी किसको बोलते हैं, एसएफसी किसको बोलते हैं, और सिर्फ सिंपल प्रपोजल किसको बोलते हैं। हमें पता है कि कोई भी स्कीम जब हम फ्रेम करते हैं, तो देयर आर ऑलवेज सर्टेन अनसर्टेनिटी, और प्राइजेस कम ज्यादा हो सकते हैं। तो 20% तक का वेरिएशन जो एक्सचेंज रेट की वजह से है, प्राइस एस्केलेशन की वजह से है, तो ये सेक्रेटरी साहब ही उसको अप्रूवल दे सकते हैं। बट अगर उससे ज्यादा है, या ऐसे रीजन से है, बिकॉज ऑफ द चेंज इन द स्कोप एंड अदर थिंग्स, उस केस में बियॉन्ड 20% इट इज सपोज टू बी एग्जामिन बाय रिवाइज कॉस्ट कमिटी चेयर्ड बाय फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर, और उसके बाद इट गोज टू द ओरिजिनल अप्राइजल फोरम, एसएफसी, ईएफसी, या उसके बाद अप्रूवल के लिए कैबिनेट और रिस्पेक्टिव मिनिस्टर के पास जा सकता है। ओके, तो जो हमें दिक्कत हुई लास्ट ईयर DWRI स्कीम में, वो इसी की वजह से हुई, क्योंकि DWRS में हमारे पास 750 करोड़ थे, पूरे हमने स्पेंड होने के बाद हमें एक्स्ट्रा पैसा चाहिए था। तो एक्स्ट्रा पैसा की जो रिक्वायरमेंट है वो फिर ये RCE जिसे कहते हैं, इसके तहत हमने उसका प्रोसेसिंग किया और उसका फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर से अप्रूवल लेके फिर हमें एक्स्ट्रा पैसा मिल गया। तो SFC में कौन कौन होता है? SFC chaired by our secretary DOWR RDNGR, and financial advisor is a member secretary with the representative from Niti Aayog. EFC is a bigger committee chaired by expenditure secretary, और बाकी के मेंबर्स इस स्लाइड में आपको दिख रहे हैं। DIB जो प्रोजेक्ट के लिए होता है, इसमें अगेन सेक्रेटरी इज द चेयर, एंड PIB विच इज अगेन फॉर अ प्रोजेक्ट, उसमें एक्सपेंडिचर सेक्रेटरी इज द चेयर। जब भी कोई प्रपोजल कैबिनेट के पास जाता है तो वी नीड टू प्रिपेयर ए कैबिनेट नोट। ओके, कैबिनेट नोट एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट डॉक्यूमेंट होता है जिसके बेसिस पे कैबिनेट उस स्कीम को, प्रोजेक्ट को, प्रपोजल को अप्रूवल देता है। इट इज अ सीक्रेट डॉक्यूमेंट टिल इट इज अप्रूव्ड बाय द कैबिनेट। एक स्पेसिफिक फॉर्मेट में ये बनता है, और आई एम श्योर आप लोगों ने पहले जो कैबिनेट नोट्स है वो देखे होंगे। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल गवर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र के लिए जो हमारा स्पेशल पैकेज है AIBP के तहत, उसका कैबिनेट नोट आप देख सकते हैं। ओके, और एक बार SFC EFC और अगर प्रोजेक्ट है तो DIB PIB अप्रूव होने के बाद देन आपको, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द प्रोविजंस इन दैट अप्रूव्ड मेमो, आपको हर साल प्रोविजन मांगनी है बजट में अंडर वेरियस हेड्स। उसमें जो एक्टिविटीज बताइए, उस एक्टिविटी करने के लिए जो भी पैसा है वो मांगना है, और फिर उस एक्टिविटी करते समय चाहे कंस्ट्रक्शन हो, प्रोक्योरमेंट हो, जो भी कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी है उसका भी आपको अप्रूवल लेना है। ओके, सो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट once EFC SFC is approved, we follow all the governmental norms for procurement, for construction, for other expenditure and activities which are envisaged in that EFC SFC memo, and with the approval of respective competent authority as per the delegation of power, we do the procurement, construction and spending of the budget that we receive. So with this I conclude my presentation. It is almost 1.5 hours. Some of the slides I passed through, but I would request all of you to go through the details of it. This is something which is very fundamental to understand. Once you understand this, it will be very easy for you to plan your activities of your office, project the requirement under schemes, under non-plan schemes, so on and so forth. So thank you. Any question?
जिसको भी डाउट है, किसी इशू कुछ भी है तो वो सर से पूछ सकते हैं।
Any doubt? You can unmute yourself and speak. कोई भी डाउट नहीं है? एक भी डाउट नहीं है?
सर माई सेल्फ शुभंकर दास फ्रॉम TNPTV।
यस शुभम, बताइए।
सर एक क्वेश्चन था सर, बोल रहे थे कि एक्सेस अगर कुछ खर्च हो गया है गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से तो उसको एक्स पोस्ट फैक्टो अप्रूवल के लिए भेजा जाता है आगे। तो सर शायद मेरा सुनने में थोड़ा ये हुआ है, तो मैं एक बार क्लैरिफाई करना चाहूँगा सर। कॉन्सुलेटेड फंड ऑफ इंडिया तो सर विद परमिशन से ही सर हम खर्च करते हैं सर, तो उसके मतलब उसमें जितना अलाउ करेंगे उतना ही खर्च करेंगे, तो एक्सेस एक्सपेंडिचर कैसे हम उसमें कर पाएंगे सर?
देखिए, जैसे टोटल बजट मिलता है मंत्रालय को, है ना, और बजट इज मेड अवेलेबल टू द रिस्पेक्टिव मिनिस्ट्री। और जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि उसमें चेंजेस करने की अथॉरिटी होती है रिस्पेक्टिव एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव मिनिस्ट्री को। देन विद द अप्रूवल ऑफ फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री भी आप कर सकते हो, और कुछ चीजें जिसमें आप बिल्कुल नहीं कर सकते। सपोज देयर इज सम इमरजेंसी काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन, ओके, और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया में आपको पता होगा कि सेक्रेटरी ऑफ द मिनिस्ट्री इज द चीफ अकाउंटिंग ऑफिसर। ओके, ही कैन डायरेक्ट द ऑफिसर्स अंडर हिम to utilize the money, excess also expenditure, it is whenever it is required, because out of the total budget which is available to the ministry, तो उसमें एक्सेस कैसे हो सकता है कि आपके पास टोटल बजट है, आपने किसी एक स्कीम का जो बजट है वो किसी दूसरे स्कीम में इन एक्सेस ऑफ दैट स्कीम बियॉन्ड द पावर्स ऑफ रीअप्रोप्रिएशन आपने यूज किया. ओके, ऐसे केस में जहां पे आपने बेसिकली जो आपको दी हुई अथॉरिटी है वो एक्सीड की है, एक्सेस एक्सपेंडिचर मींस इन एक्सेस ऑफ द अथॉरिटी विच इज डेलीगेटेड टू यू, ऐसे केसेस को आपको एक्सेस डिमांड फॉर ग्रांट के फॉर्म में सबमिट करना होगा. इट विल बी एग्जामिन्ड बाय द कंट्रोलर एंड ऑडिटर जनरल ऑफ इंडिया. It will be examined by the Public Accounts Committee, and then it will be regularized. Okay, so as a chief accounting officer of that particular department, secretary has a power to make expenditure in excess of the authority which is given to him. Okay.
Okay, sir. Clear.
Any more questions?
Any more questions, please? Okay, thank you. Then we can conclude.
Sir.
Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving a comprehensive overview of accounting system in government. You talked about the budget, capital revenue, demand for grants, consolidated fund of India, contingency fund of India, authorization of fund, audit, budget estimate, revised estimate, various schemes, object heads, appraisal of various schemes, EFC and SFC memo, cabinet note. So you touched all the important aspect of government budgeting system. So thank you, sir. I'm sure our participant must have gained the required insight and knowledge about the budget of government system. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you. I hope the audio was okay.
Yes, sir.
There was no technical disruption as such.
No, it was perfectly all right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.